rude. I ain't even introduced you. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Rasheem with the counter narrative. Tonight's topic is race, social justice, and I'm forgetting the rest of the topic: race, politics, and social justice. There you go. And I have two fantastic guests joining me tonight, and I'm going to let them actually introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about them, and then we're going to get right into race, politics, and social justice. Topic. There you go. And we're going to get right into the topic. I'm going to go ahead and start with Vicky. Go ahead, Vicky. Tell us who you are. Tell us something that you're passionate about, and tell us at least one thing about you that we can't learn from a bio.
All right. Well, my name is Vicky J. It stands for Victoria James. And I am a beauty YouTuber by day and a social justice warrior by night. Something that you cannot read in my bio. I don't think I have a bio unless we count the one for Legacy Internet Radio. But something that you probably wouldn't know about me from a bio. I am an only child. I don't know how relevant that is to the conversation.
Sometimes that could tell you a lot about a person.
Yeah. I think it says a lot about me.
Right? No, that's what's up. All right. And so did you say something that you were passionate about?
Oh, makeup. That's my thing.
Right. You and my daughter. My daughter is like, Mom, I want to see how this look. Let me see. And she stayed on YouTube videos doing it. Like
my watch later list is like hundreds of videos.
She makes like her own made up video. She's all like, and here she's all with her number 2 pencil. And here I have this. And it's like, it's not.
Oh my God. How old is she?
She's 8.
Oh my gosh.
It is not real. All right, Carl, let us know. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, I'm a minister and a student as well, a PhD student, and I'm living in Mobile, Alabama right now. To tell you something that you wouldn't find on my bio, I'm a singer also. So that would probably be safe to tell you about.
That would be the safe thing. You sound like you got some bodies or something. That'd be the safe thing.
Oh no.
And what's something that you're passionate about?
Rehumanization. The rehumanization of the individual.
Say more about that.
About people. Well, when I say rehumanization, there were things that were done in order to dehumanize us culturally, spiritually, socioeconomically. So my perspective is, the way to get us to a healthy place is to begin to look at ways that we can rehumanize our folks.
Okay, that sounds interesting. I might ask you a little bit more about that later. You have a little bit of a glare too on your like coming down.
Trying to work on that kind of subtly. I was like, can I play it off? And
you was like, that's just my halo. Don't mind that. That's just my halo or whatever. So I want to jump right in, and a lot of this is going to seem and sound like old news, and to some degree it is, but I want us to at the very least have a conversation about it. So the whole thing, of course, as everybody knows, unless you've been under a rock for the last year or few months, the whole thing with Colin Kaepernick, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. Correct me if I'm not. His national anthem protests for racial justice. I'm not sure where that is right now. I have heard a lot about sponsors dropping him. Have you heard anything about that, Vicky?
Yes, I did hear about sponsors dropping him, but I also see a lot of people joining his protest. I see on the high school sports level, all the way up to the pro level, standing in protest with him, as well as students not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know where they still do that, but apparently there are some stories about people who are still, doing the Pledge of Allegiance and some children opting out of it. And most of the protests are happening on sports teams and things like that. But there are lots of people joining in across racial lines, and I think that is a beautiful thing.
What was your first response to that, Carl, when you heard about what Colin was doing?
Oh, I was like, he's got a lot of strength behind him in his character. You know, to take that opportunity, to take that position, to take that risk with all that money, you know, dangling in the wind, and just go ahead on and do that. You know, to have that kind of conviction. Hats off to him. Real talk.
It's interesting because I've heard some people say like, "Oh, he's not really taking that much of a risk because he has all of that money. Like, if he was just Joe Blow on his corporate job, he wouldn't be able to do that." And then some other people take the same standpoint as you take in terms of like, he has a lot of money, a lot of sponsorships, a lot of things that he's risking in terms of doing that. What's your thoughts on that, Vicky?
I think that I agree with Carl. He has a lot to lose being in the position that he's in. And because he is more public, is more of a public figure, he's open to a lot more scrutiny, which is exactly what he's getting. This reminds me a lot of when Muhammad Ali wouldn't enlist in the army.
Right.
And his reason behind not enlisting and the backlash that he received in losing some of his titles and of course some endorsements and things like that. And yes, he had plenty of money. And the whole nation calling him a traitor like they're doing with Colin. And still sticking to his principles because he knows that what he's doing is right. And he's thinking about the people who are going to be impacted by this. And you can see the impact of what he's doing. And I think that is even more motivation to keep going, even with the people being paid to oppose his stance, or the people who are truly against it for whatever reason they're against it. I think that it does take a great strength of character to be able to withstand all of that and not succumb to the, sign on the dotted line and and just shut your mouth and retract what you said. He knows that even if he doesn't have a team to play for next year, that he will still be supported. There are people who obviously support him, including veterans. I don't know why they keep talking about the veterans, but there's still people who support him, and he will be all right.
Right.
You just gotta hang in there. And I think that too many people are willing to not rock the boat in order to stay safe and comfortable. And I just applaud anybody who's willing to step outside of that
and speak up. I know in light of like, this is really like the age of Black Lives Matter in terms of only it being a very highly racialized context, but people being more conscious and woke to it, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, people are actually talking about it, in their songs, in their music, in their, in all of these different venues. And one of the things that I was really appreciative and just made me more of a fan is like Beyonce's whole and then her album Lemonade. Say what you want, I feel like that whole album is, the visual album is like the Black girl album.
That was a letter to the Black woman. It really was. It was an open letter to the Black woman. And honestly, I've been a fan of Beyonce since No. And I was never considered myself a member of the Beehive. Never. I said she is very talented. She's beautiful. She's she's a good pop star. I'm here for it. But I never bought a ticket to any of her shows until this album. I said, I'm going to see this tour. And I not just listened to the album, but I actually stayed up and watched it on HBO. And I said, well, who is this? Who is this woman here? Her sister been talking to her extensively, and I appreciate it. You know what I mean? I think that since she had a baby, that really played a huge part in her evolution and feeling like, she's at a point in her career where she can, to a similar extent as Colin. I think that she is at a place in her career where even if people did decide that they didn't want to mess with her anymore, like if Pepsi said, girl, be gone, that she could still do great things and she would still be highly influential. So, you know, I think that she did it in a way that definitely rocked the boat, but didn't ruin anything for her. For example, her Super Bowl performance during Black History Month. Whew, girl, that was so fantastic. And I watched that. I swear to y'all, I watched that about 25 times. It was so, because part of me, and this is me starting to get into the way that I am on my show, part of me was just ecstatic at the reaction from mainstream media. Actually, like
they just now realizing that she's actually Black. Like, yeah, she's been Black.
That SNL skit with it.
I love that skit. I love that skit.
Oh my goodness. I just had a field day. I spent that entire week in a fit of laughter because of the reaction. Like, it was just so strong. Like, whew, boy, there's a collective tantrum happening in this nation, and I'm just sitting back. I'm just sitting back like Super Nanny and letting it ride out.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely feel you on the point that you made about with Beyonce. Like, I have been a fan of Beyonce this entire time, but when she did this whole Lemonade and Formation thing, where I immediately went and bought myself a ticket and my cousin a ticket. Like, we really want to see this. Like, we would, and the whole thing, I even hosted a thing at my house where we did like a viewing and a critique of it. Because she has this poetry in there. She's talking about, she's talking about some of everything. And I remember one of my first response to it when I posted on Facebook was, has there ever been something so beautiful, vulnerable, morbid, scary, dark, and liberating created in one work of art? I think not.
It was truly magnificent.
Yeah. Carl, you have any take on? Go ahead, Vicky. You were saying something.
I was just going to say really quickly the way that she incorporated so many facets of Black culture, collective Black culture throughout the diaspora and the continent, and the African continent. It was just great. Like, it made you want to learn more. It made you want to dig deeper. You know, a lot of people don't know who the Orishas are. They don't know the references, the cultural and religious, spiritual references that she used throughout the video. They didn't know about the young lady who wrote the poetry, for the film. They didn't know about the artist, some of the Black artists that she used in the video. And it just really made you want to dive deeper into yourself, essentially. I just thought it was dope.
No, it was fantastic. I mean, I know there's been conversations around whether or not she is a feminist or whether or not she's a Black feminist. And I'm really not. I'm more of a womanist, but I'm also more interested in who she is in terms of like what she is contributing to the dialogue in terms of culture and in terms of what it means to be a woman in today. And I really appreciate that. Carl, you have any stance or anything you like to say about Queen Bee?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, I appreciate the dialogue that you all, because you were informing me some. You know, I haven't had as much opportunity to follow her as I would probably like. That time is freeing up for me a little bit now.
You froze?
I'm always appreciative from when you're talking about music and artistic expression, when someone takes that position that they are going to use that to craft a narrative that everybody can get on with, you know. I definitely like that. I like the idea of what she's done and what she's doing, the direction that she's going, and using her influence to shift things to another direction.
Absolutely. I so felt like Solange has been talking to her.
Yeah. Did you listen to Seat at the Table?
No.
That's Solange's new album, Seat at the Table. I listened to it on Spotify, and I said, yeah, she definitely had a lot of influence on Lemonade and vice versa.
I am going to check that out. So, I mean, and you have artists, and you have public figures like Colin Kaepernick, and then you have Beyonce, And then on the flip side, you have Lil Wayne saying racism doesn't exist. And his claim to fame, or his proof of it, is that when he looks out over the audience, he sees all of these white people in the audience. But my first thought was like, Black people been dancing on stage for all white audiences for years. Like, how is that your proof?
This is the I think that, you know, we got to remember he's from Louisiana. Shout out to the South, right? Carl is in Alabama right now.
Yeah, I'm in Mobile.
My grandfather's from Alabama. My late grandfather's from Alabama. Most of my family is from the South, Tennessee, Florida, etc. What is considered racist is relative, you know? And I think that because of the way he has grown up, he's been wealthy for the majority of his life. And coming from where he came from, he may not feel like microaggressions are a big deal. He may not feel like, he may not feel he thinks blatant racism is racism. That's the long and short of that. And I think that subconsciously, maybe he does long for white acceptance and validation, and seeing this sea of white people, you know, rapping along to 6 foot, 7 foot seems to be this kind of, you know, validation for him. And he feels like, if this is what it's like for me, then this must be what it's like for most of us. And that's very unrealistic. And what I did appreciate was that he did say in that interview with Skip that his answer to that question is not a majority. This is not representative of the way that most Black people will probably feel.
Right.
So he kept it central, and he kept it individual in his response. And I appreciate that much, but the rest of it was very kind of off base and very linear. I felt the way that he, in his line of thinking, and I was just like, all right, Wayne. At the end of the day, I was just like, whatever, man.
That was in the line, you know, that was along the lines of the Stacey Dash, the Raven Simone kind of thing, you know, where, you know, there's this, I'm so removed that this doesn't apply to me.
Right.
And
that's about some
if Beyonce can see it, and trust me, she make more than his behind. If Beyonce can see it, then and her family's from Louisiana. Her mom's from Louisiana. Her daddy's from Alabama. She said it right in formation. So how is it that he can't see it? I don't know.
I mean, I
just don't want to.
And I'm just like, is it that we get to a certain point and we buy our way out of Blackness or something? Like, I'm wondering how much of it, like, intersectionally, when we look at race and then we put class in there, because we're not experiencing some of those things that we would experience if we were of a lower class, like how much experiences, like just to even acknowledge that. Because I feel like you can have more money and realize that people treating you like the XYZ because you Oprah, or because you Lil Wayne, or because you got Luke.
I think it comes with your interpretation of what racism is. I truly do. I really feel like you look at Oprah, billionaire, who goes overseas and walks into an Hermes store in her plain clothes and is told by a representative who probably makes a smooth $10 an hour that she can't afford the bag that she's asking to look at. Right? Yeah. Then you have someone like Will Smith, who is also very wealthy, who comes from West Philadelphia and understands and remembers it very well, and will tell you racism hasn't changed; it has just changed clothes, essentially. Like racism was he said something to the effect of, you know, racism has never been there. There just weren't cameras, or something to that effect. So he's not so far removed from it, and he's hugely wealthy as well. Combined with his wife, I mean, they are swimming in it. And their kids, although they have not directly been impacted in the same way that their parents were, perhaps, also are very conscious of racial tension and racial bias and things of that nature because they experience it from their critics. You know, it's really about the perspective, what you choose. And to add another layer to that, I look at people like Wayne and like Kanye and, you know, all these folks who seem to be grappling for a seat at the table. And okay. I feel like they are so entrenched in the idea of validation and acceptance that they are willing to purposefully overlook things. So, you know, you have both sides of the coin. And I want to say that has truly always been there since the inception of colonialism.
You're probably right.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
Right. You want to add any more to that, Carl? What do you think about, should we be holding our entertainers? This is a question I have. I'll ask you first, Carl. Should we be holding our entertainers accountable? Our entertainers, our artists, you know, should we be holding them accountable? Should we be?
You know, art, music, rap, poetry, however you want to flavor it, basically is always reflected cultural issues, you know, among other things. So I think that we certainly have to hold artists accountable. You can't hold them to the same standard that you would hold a grad school ethics professor, though, you know, because he's more informed. He or she would be more informed. But an artist, certainly, you know, whatever it is, however it is that they can approach and however it is that they can inform themselves properly to be accurate, to be within a decent context, you know, that's gonna be helpful to larger society. I think that we have to say, okay, yeah, I mean, this is what, I mean, it's not just that you go out and you do these records and you make $1 gazillion. You also got to look at what's going on in society and say, okay, well, how can I help push that in a positive way, as opposed to somebody writing me a fat check and I just say, okay, well, us four no more. You know, we got to go to a different place with things. We got to definitely appreciate the fact that we have our skills and we can speak to things from a perspective that other people may not be able to speak to them from.
So, and we have a stage and a platform and a microphone and people listening to us.
Right.
I see what you're saying. What do you think, Vicki? Should we be holding our artists, entertainers accountable?
I think that ideally we absolutely should. I think that people who are in the public eye should feel a sense of responsibility to the influence that they have on people. But from a realistic standpoint, I believe that there are genres in which that is more applicable than others. I'm certainly not going to expect a lot out of a reality show star, for example.
Right.
To give me the word and constantly be a shining example of what a human being should be for my future generations. I think, you know what I'm saying? Like I think that someone like Lil Wayne, for example, who is borderline pop, should, for his own sake, I mean, lyrically speaking, the more you know, the better you are as a lyricist. It would behoove him to actually be aware of social issues. But then you have someone like Kendrick Lamar, who is familiar on social issues, or J. Cole, who is familiar on social issues, but that's their niche. That's what they do. You know, that's what he raps about. So it makes sense that he is aware of social issues. Wayne raps about weed, vaginas, and light skins with biracial hair types or something. I don't remember exactly, but you know, I'm not expecting him to have, you know, political commentary versus someone like Kendrick or J. Cole, who I do expect to be more conscious. Honestly, Beyonce's Lemonade album came out of left field for me because I felt like she was more of a women's anthem pop singer. I thought that's what I thought she was. She was all about women's anthems and not to say that they weren't fantastic. I love Green Light. I love Deja Vu. Like, you know, these songs are great, but I never expected her to do an album as smart and as deep as Lemonade. Great, wonderful surprise, but I never expected that from her, and I wouldn't have been mad if it never happened. I take someone like Michael Jackson, who did give us politically charged music. But he also wasn't very conscious. If we really listen to him talk, he wasn't all that conscious. Because he was like, his head was in the clouds. He's been famous since he was 5 years old, and he didn't really know that much about the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up for me. I feel like we need to take, we need to sort of accept these people for who they actually are.
Right.
Right.
And thanks, Tanika. And we need to not expect as much as we do from them. I really think that we need to humanize celebrities more. Mm-hmm. And say, for example, I could have been totally heartbroken over this, but I'm not. Tim Burton, somebody who I have practically grown up on. Mm-hmm. Someone who has given me The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I consider a classic holiday film. and has given me Edward Scissorhands, which introduced me to Johnny Depp, who became the inspiration for me pursuing acting when I was a teenager, and things like that. You know, like, he is really somebody who kind of catapulted my love for theater and etc. And recently today, he said that his films just simply don't call for people of color. And he doesn't think that everything should call for people of color, and we don't have to be politically correct in every facet of life and blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, all right, whatever. Like, I just totally expect that. Like, I expected that from him, because it's true. He doesn't put black and brown people in his films. I've never seen a person of color in a Tim Burton film in my life.
You know what? Now that you,
and so it,
I actually haven't. And really,
like, and you didn't notice? I didn't even notice it, and I don't necessarily care. You know what? He's right. You're right, sir. Not everything calls for diversity, but your way of answering it and talking about it, like back in my day, this is how it was, and etc., and feeling annoyed by it. That's the part that irked me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's also the part that just, also doesn't surprise me. I don't know. I just kind of expected it.
Right. I know Matt Damon, I heard he had a similar response. Like, why does there need to be diversity behind the camera or something along those lines? Did you guys remember?
He did. And I just thought that was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, the people, they still want things to be the way that they used to be. So, anything
when something doesn't affect you, you don't see a need for it. Like, we could say the same thing about gender, why do there need to be female directors and writers and producers and etc.? Because you can't speak for that which you do not know.
Right.
Right.
That's the bottom line about diversity. Now, I will say about Tim Burton and his films, I don't necessarily feel like his films really call for people of color. The stories that he talks about, like Sleepy Hollow, for example, there were no brown people in it. Now call me crazy, but that reboot of Sleepy Hollow with the black woman as the doctor was absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. And tons of people loved it. And they loved the romance between her and, what in the world? Ichabod. Yeah, like, people love that romance. I can tell you that I never watched it, but I heard it was amazing. And I also heard that a lot of people dropped off of watching it once they got rid of her. Mm-hmm. That speaks to, that's a modern day interpretation of it, but he was going off the book version when he created that film, and I did watch it and I thought it was great. Again, there were no black people in the book. They just stayed true to the book, and I was just like, all right, like, that's the way it is. Same thing with Edward Scissorhands. That's just the way it was, and in the story, that's the way he did it. And I'm not even mad at that, but again, it was his response, like, ugh, diversity. Gosh, that crap gets on my nerves. Like, you know what I mean? That was where I had a problem. I was like, excuse me?
Like,
well,
yeah,
exactly.
Too is I can get, like, okay, that's not your thing. You're not into me that much, right? I get that. I think my annoyance is, like, if you're not going to be into me, that's okay. However, I would like to have more people who are into me on the main stage. And I feel
it should be a possibility, but should not be flat out shut out.
Right. And
Fresh Off the Boat is an amazing show.
There's a lot of amazing shows that aren't
Blackish is great.
Right. And there's some where it's like, I feel like right now, as much as I love Shonda and Shonda Land and Shonda Rhimes and so much that she's up to, I feel like there's so much forced diversity. It's just like, we're going to put, I don't know if her shows are actual representations of what's going on or her ideal of what it should be. And I also don't like feeling like it's her responsibility to put every diversity, everything in all of her shows.
And I think about Shonda's shows in the way that I think about shows that we had back in the day, like Living Single and Martin and The Cosby Show and all of these things where, or even taking it further back, Good Times and Sanford and Son and things like that. Like those shows were necessary in that space and may have at the time felt like forced diversity. Like when they had the crossover of All in the Family and the Jeffersons. That was something that was necessary at the time because it was still segregated. The way TV shows were written and casts and things like that, it still was quite segregated. So when they had the shows come together and they had these families have dinner together, and we all know Archie is a full-blown bigot.
Right.
You know,
right.
And they made it funny, but and then you also had George, who was also very prejudiced.
The end of the spectrum.
Right.
And they ended up kind of like meeting and understanding that they kind of were very similar.
Yeah.
Like they're very similar. But then you have shows like Shonda's show, and I think the first one was Grey's Anatomy, right? That was like the big takeoff, the breakout show. I think that the way that she does her writing and like with Scandal and with I think How to Get Away with Murder is under Shonda Land, but I don't think she actually directs it or writes it. But I want to tell you that show right there. That's my show. I won't miss that show.
Well,
I don't watch it on TV, but How to Get Away with Murder, I will absolutely never miss ever.
You're absolutely should be that.
And you know what my favorite episode was, right, Vicky?
Which one?
The one where she was in the mirror and she was taking off her makeup.
Okay.
That was my favorite. I feel like it was my favorite because I felt like her character was trying to be so strong, and I felt like she had this whole strong black woman, strong thing, and that was like I got to see a more dynamic character. I got to see somebody who was bitchy and sexy and vulnerable and weak and not just one dimensional. That was like one of my favorite. That was the episode that made me keep watching more episodes.
That in itself is why I love that show. Her character, Viola Davis's character, Annalise Keating, is so human. You know what I mean? Like she's so multifaceted. She's so complex, and she's very vulnerable at different times. For example, my favorite episode is when her mama, played by my imaginary grandma, Cicely Tyson, came through to help her child get better and sat her between her legs.
Yeah.
And greased her scalp. I love that moment. And they and in addition to the very black moments that were in the episode, she also confronted her mom for allowing her to be molested.
Yes.
And the response that her mother gave, and all this time you're feeling like her mom just kind of is weak and doesn't protect her, but then she finds out, and this is not a spoiler, you guys, you should have watched it already.
Yeah.
Then she finds out at the end of the episode that she actually did protect her by killing that man, burnt down the house with him in it. Come through, Mom. It was just it was just like, yo, This show is absolutely brilliant. Even without all the murder mystery aspect of it, I could totally watch this show anyway.
Right. Carl, you watch any of these shows? Do you have any shows where it seems like there is a lot of diversity, or what are your favorite shows that you like to watch when you see race and culture being?
You know, I haven't had the time to look at TV the way that I used to. I used to be a television junkie. But I've looked at Orange is the New Black. I looked at that on Netflix, and there were a lot of layers in there.
Yep.
Yeah, there were a lot of layers in that. And I looked at that.
Pretty diverse cast.
Yeah, it is. They have everybody up in there.
That's true.
And it's intersectional diversity. Intersectional diversity, not just racial diversity. That's what I really appreciate about the new shows that are coming out, because it's so much more than just we need to fit a quota. You know what I mean? Right. It's not just that. It's that we need different perspectives represented, because there's so much more to us than just who we are on the outside.
And it's not just diversity. It's like you said about the perspectives, it's inclusion. Because I don't just see the Black girl or the Black transgender woman. I get to know her story and her struggle.
And she becomes a human being to you.
It's absolutely.
Yeah, I do too. My friend Tanika made a really great point. She said, I wish the writers on Orange is the New Black were as diverse. I agree with that.
How about that? I'm glad
because that's another layer of representation that is extremely important. Because, like we mentioned before about Matt Damon and his nonsense,
right?
That it's about, you can't write it if you don't understand it. You can't write it well if you don't understand it.
Right. Let me give a quick shout out to people also who are watching live. And on this particular platform, it doesn't show me that you are on unless you type something. So type a hello. And I'm going to say hello to Don John. Thank you for being here. Steph. Thank you. Thank you. Vicky J, thank you for being here. And of course, Carl, thank you also for being here. If I didn't mention you, please do just say hello in the chat so that I can see that you're there and say hello to you and all of that good stuff. So we talked a bit about race, and we talked a little bit about diversity on the screen, behind the screen, artists, and that sort of thing. We're about to talk about one more another character. Well, actually two more characters, right? How are you guys feeling that this election, or will this particular election impact race relations in America? Wow. Whether it's one candidate or the other. Yep, you saw that, right? So I'm going to let Carl go first. Carl, how do you feel like this is going to impact?
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at Hillary, and Hillary has that Clinton machine behind her. She, she's had these high positions in government. She's a lawyer. She has everything going for her that she could possibly have going for her, as far as someone that is trying to come into that realm at the highest position in the country. Then you got Trump over here, who has all of the old, I guess you would say the 19th century kind of stuff that they would be up in arms behind. Someone who's gonna be the cowboy or whatever, and take things in his own method and do whatever it is that he feels like he needs to do, however he feels like he needs to do it. And he's got a big following over here. She's got a big following over here. And we're gonna struggle up under either one, to be honest with you, because Hillary, on the one hand, was a part of the Clinton machine with Bill, and when he did some of the evil things, she was right there. She was right there looking, she was right there looking over his shoulder, looking at him do all this stuff. And I'm not saying that she had necessarily the power to completely stop him, but certainly, there could have been some things done, like with the 3 strikes law and all of these things that, she was there when they occurred, and then you got Trump over here, who's erratic, who's every kind of phobic you can think of, and so it's like, we're gonna struggle either way. I think we'll struggle a bit less under Hillary, even with the things that have happened in the past, the things that she's done, the things that she's been a part of, the things that she's advocated, and the things that she's kind of glossed over. I still think that she'll probably be better simply because she knows the beast. She knows what it is. She knows how to operate within that realm. Whereas, Trump, even with his following or whatever, that joker might press the button any day, and below all of us, there might not be another Earth, a planet Earth when Trump is done. So, that's my perspective.
What you say, Vicky? Deep breath.
Man, forget being nice. Listen, Trump is trash.
No doubt.
Sorry, but sorry, not sorry. I just think he is a buffoon. I think that he is an absolute clown. I really, truly do. And that orange layer of self-tanner does not help his situation. I really feel like he doesn't even have the ability to articulate himself. Like he's how you got all this money and you still this stupid. I just can't even wrap my head around it.
Right.
You have all the money in the world, like you said, you're this big billionaire, you big shot and all this, but you can't get somebody to write for you. You can't get somebody to coach you for a debate. You can't get somebody to sit you down because you are so narcissistic. You are so immature and you are so all those phobics that you just said that you can't even be objective about yourself enough to see that you need help. That in itself is, aside from all the isms and the phobics that he is, that's enough right there to tell you that he's not qualified to be president. He couldn't even hold his own in the first debate. That's supposed to be the easiest one.
Right.
And you couldn't even hold your own in this debate. It was such garbage. Like he was just, and I wasn't on anybody's debate team, but I was on mock trial when I was in high school. I'm most certainly not dumb. So, I could sit there and listen to a debate. I wouldn't necessarily call myself political, although I did work at the State House here in Boston for a little bit. I wouldn't call myself a political giant. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know all the ins and outs of politics, but I know when I am hearing somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. And he most certainly has no clue what he's talking about. He makes George W. Bush look like a genius.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. But he's convincing in his ignorance.
He is convincing in his ignorance toward the ignorant. Toward the ignorant.
Right,
those are the only people that he has convinced. Right. They are not hard to convince. So that's like saying, oh, but he got the elementary school on his side.
Right.
It's not that hard to convince people with small minds.
Did you see that picture of him with there was a news photo with him where he was shaking hands and stuff, and there was this one lady who was like, she was like, she was looking at him like he was Michael Jackson and he was moonwalking right there.
I do remember that. She looked at him like he was the second coming.
Right.
And I was just like, madam, if you don't go back there with your cousin husband and just leave us alone. But yes, about Hillary though. About Hillary, I will say, I'm one of the hashtag girl, I guess I'm with her. I'm that person. She can have my vote. I do, I'm gonna be sitting back with my, am I here?
Yeah, I see you.
I'm gonna be sitting back with my arms folded, and waiting for her at the door with my head cocked to the side, just to see what she does with her first term. And hopefully she uses her historical accomplishment and her absolute last hurrah at this, right? This is your last chance to really make a huge impact politically. What are you going to do with it? I feel like she could be as great as she's claiming she's going to be. I feel like that is a huge possibility. I feel like she could make, kind of she could do something good with this if that's her mission. If her mission is to actually do some good with this, I think that she has a lot of trust to build. And if she takes that seriously, I think that it could work in the favor of people of color. To kind of undo what her husband did.
Yeah, that's
you
gonna
know,
be
like
key right
I have some faith
Real
in
talk.
that. I have some faith in that. So I don't know, but I do know that the answer is not Trump. I do know that these people who long for the Reagan era and they feel like he's going to bring that back and that they're suddenly going to be safer, I think that they are absolute dumbasses. And forgive me for the curse word. I just, you know, I think that they are extremely unintelligent people. And you can hear that when you hear them interviewed. When you look at an interview and they immediately contradict themselves.
Right.
And look at you like you weren't supposed to make me look dumb. You know, like it's just
Right.
it's just
How
unbelievable.
dare you ask an intelligent question?
Right. How dare you challenge my words.
Yeah.
And
Right.
we have to keep doing that. I think that we really need to keep challenging people to really think when they speak, and so that we can become the nation that we claim we are.
Sure.
You know, and I don't think that he is somebody who is accountable enough to represent us globally.
All right. I was really blown away when Homeboy was like, yeah, I ain't play, you know, like acknowledging that he didn't pay federal taxes and they made him smart for not doing that. I feel like that should automatically disqualify you from running for that seat.
Right.
Like, of all the other arbitrary stuff that would disqualify a person, like definitely not paying federal taxes should be one of them.
I mean, if anything, you're supposed to be a shining example of what an American is. And if you're not even paying your taxes like the majority, like all of us are, you know, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, that's
how much you care about the nation.
Right. That's ridiculous. So as we talk about all of these different topics, I don't think, you know, really could be ignored, especially when we get into politics, is all of these different movements that are coming up and all of these different policies that they're striving to get passed, you know. So we talk about social justice. I want to hear, what do you guys think? And I want to hear a general, I guess, on social justice yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And then after that, I want each of you to be able to give everyone a way that they can reach out to you, contact you, Facebook, Twitter, and all of that stuff. But first, I'm going to go ahead and go to Carl. Carl, let us know what you think about social justice yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
When you speak about social justice in terms of yesterday, some of the things that our predecessors did in that realm, King and that camp, Malcolm X, all of those, what they did was there were three pillars. There are three pillars that uphold social justice. That's education, advocacy, and activism. Now, if you don't learn about and teach about whatever the issue is first, then you have this, you have people scattered, and they're approaching things from a passionate but not as well informed position as they need to be. Then you have the activism part. This is where you begin to negotiate with the politicians and the people that are represent the power structure. And when you sit down and you go and you have the handshakes and the agreements and all these kinds of things. And the activism is the part when you get in the street and you say, okay, well, now you're going to live up to what it is that you agreed to do to straighten out this particular situation. When you understand that, and when you understand that order, it's easier to be successful with difficult situations because you have this in your mind. Okay, this is how we're going to approach this. These are the steps. This is what needs to happen. That's what they understood very well back then. They didn't have any choice but to be almost perfect in their delivery of dealing with that because there was so much pressure and tension. There were dogs. There were everything else. We didn't. It was at the beginning. This was for civil rights. We're in a human rights era now, where we're beginning to understand that it's not, the civil rights was like, 1 through 3, now we're in like 4 through 6 or so, with the human rights perspective. And so tomorrow, you're not going to even, I believe that once we get past the human parts aspect of it, we're not going to really have to think as hard. People are just going to be, everybody's going to understand more, the majority of people at least, where we begin and what it looks like to be human, that there are certain things that go along with being a human being, and cultural, social, economic, what have you. All of those things were stripped away from us, and so we have to have those things restored. You have to rehumanize. Whether you're talking about someone that was incarcerated, whether you're talking about someone that was a drug addict, whether you're talking about someone that was put out of the family or whatever, prison walls are not just physical. And that's what we're beginning to understand now in this era of human rights as opposed to civil rights. Civil rights didn't do it. It didn't get us there. So now we're understanding that it's really about human rights. So that's pretty much my spin on it. To contact me, LowryCall@gmail.com. You can give me a call. I'll put my number out there, 872-333-6476. Or you can reach me on Facebook, Reader Carl Lowry. Anytime.
Thank you, Carl. Don't go nowhere, because I wanted to give you a chance to repeat that for people who may not have gotten it. Can I say this? I love the way you said civil rights. I love that. I love that. I'm from the South. My grandmother's from Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just feeling all warm and fuzzy inside. So, Vicki, social justice yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
I tend to be a huge fan of the Black Panther Party and the legacy that they carried into the modern day. I am someone who follows. I feel like so much of what played out in the 60s is playing out right now. And the way that they went about it is something that we can look at and learn from. The entire civil rights movement is something that we can look at and learn from. And I'm talking about not just the key points. And you also, Carl, explained very, very well about the 3 steps of social change, if you will. I think that there are certain things that when I watch the documentary of the Black Panthers, that I see playing out right now with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm seeing them learn from some of the things that the Black Panther Party fell short on, and they're actually while they're experiencing a lot of the same things, because what appeared to work back then is what is being utilized to try and take down this group now. But the difference is that these young people have learned from their predecessors, and now they are working in a more organized manner.
Right.
And they're actually really making a difference. And I am seeing it. I'm seeing it in Campaign Zero, which is all about police reform. I believe very strongly that they had a lot to do with the upcoming dismantling of private prisons. And I think that when I look at the things that they are doing that are positive, and I see people trying to demonize them, it's very difficult for that to stick now versus when, in the 60s, before we ever had the imagination for smartphones, it was very easy to sort of pin things on Black people because of what was already ingrained in the minds of the masses about us. I think that the difference now is that we have social media to immediately call them on their lies. A wonderful example of this was the Dallas police shooting. And how CNN began to implicate a man who was not involved, and immediately social media came to his defense with proof.
Right.
Almost as soon as they said it.
Right.
And that is something that would have never happened in the 60s. Would have never been able to happen. By the time they had time to prove it, it would have already been embedded in people's minds that this person was guilty. And they very well may have been dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a very huge difference. I think that that's a difference that is extremely helpful to our cause. And I think that for the future, there is so much information that is privy to everyone. And there are so many of us who are in diverse relationships, and that's not just romantically speaking, but you know, in your schools, in your work, in your, you know, family life, you know, extended family and things like that. There's so much diversity there that there's more of an opportunity for people to see things from an objective level and from a human level, and actually have these conversations with each other. You see a lot more young white people pushing their families to be less ignorant and more aware. And the same thing for when it comes to the intersectionality of social hierarchy, you know, with homosexuality, with transgender identity, with sexual identity, gender identity, I'm sorry, things like that, that we are really, children are feeling more comfortable coming to their parents and their authority figures to talk about these things. I think that by the time we reach, am I still here or am I breaking up?
You're here.
Okay, by the time we reach maybe a future where this is the kind of thing that is less taboo and is something that is more kind of mainstream, that we can get to just talking about, what's the word I'm looking for here? Carl mentioned human rights, that right now we're focused on human rights, and I absolutely agree with that. I think that in the future, we will be focused on, I think the conversation will shift to environment.
That's interesting.
I think once we have tackled this huge social issue, this it's a global social issue, because colonialism has been the freaking black plague of the globe. That I think that by the time that we have tackled that, the future will be all about focusing on the environment, because we're already there. We're already focusing on clean energy. We're already focusing on, you know, trying to make, you know, work with nature again. The focus. We won't have to talk about this stuff anymore. And I think that's a long way off. Years from now. I'm talking about a good couple centuries from now. That's future. The future is when we have weeded out almost every bigot. They're almost like all gone. And I think that that is when we will reach a point where we can shift our focus to something else.
Awesome. Vicki, tell everybody how they can reach you. Tell them that you have, what days it comes on
sure.
Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter you.
All right, cool. Well, I am Vicki J on every social media platform. I have a beauty channel here on YouTube, and it's also called Vicki J. And then I co-host a social justice show called The Woke Squad, on which airs on Legacy Internet Radio every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. You can listen to it via tunein.com or the app TuneIn, TUNEIN. It's on every mobile device. And The Woke Squad is also on Facebook at facebook.com/Woke Squad. We're on Twitter at The Woke Squad Pod. And myself, again, I'm Vicki J on every social media platform, so you can just find me that way. And The Woke Squad, we generally air on Fire Talk, but if Fire Talk is not available, we do the same thing we're doing tonight, a Google Hangout on our YouTube channel.
That's what's up. So, Carl, you want to let them know one more time a way that they can get in contact with you, or what are you up to next?
I'm so sorry. Real quick, Carl, I'm sorry, before I forget. We filmed the show on Sunday at 11 a.m. The show airs on Legacy Internet Radio Friday from 7 to 9. Sorry about that.
Oh. Got it.
Okay.
You
want to know how to get in touch with me again?
Yeah, sorry. I think my thing is like delayed.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
That's LowryCarl@gmail.com is a good way. And I'm also on Facebook. That's Reader, just like reading a book, Reader, Carl Lowry, on Facebook. And you can also find me on Skype, Reverend Lowry, all all lowercase. And I'm down here now in Mobile, Alabama, helping with a coalition that's dealing with the BP oil disaster, trying to make certain that the Black voice is heard and their proper resources are allocated for persons of color down here in Mobile. That's pretty much what I'm doing right now. Got a few other things going, but that's the paramount thing at this moment.
Awesome. I want to thank both of you guys for agreeing to participate in the counter narrative on this show on race and social justice. And I'm about to forget the whole name.
Politics.
It's politics and social justice. Thank you for helping me get my life together, Vicky. I appreciate you. Thank you to everyone here, as well as everyone who is watching the replay. Again, this has been another episode of the Counter Narrative, and we have been talking about race, politics, and social justice. You can find S. Rasheem. You can visit srasheem.com, srasheem on Twitter, Rasheem on Facebook, or right here, and you're on this channel right now. Please do like the video, click subscribe, share it with some people, and you can also find some other videos. Check out Vicky J. I'm sorry. Do you go by Vicky J or just Vicky?
Yeah, Vicky J.
Check out Vicky's channel, subscribe, like, follow, communal people. So check us all out. And until next time, good night, folks.
Good night.